This is the Squiggly Careers podcast. And one quick thing, this is our 500th episode today. Thank you.
Effective authenticity is where you project a version of yourself that resonates with others whilst maintaining a semblance of genuineness. Trust is more important than authenticity. Whether they're being their authentic self as a person flying the plane, they're bringing themselves to work, that is less important than trust. Do you trust them to fly the plane?
Are you part of an emotionally intelligent team? Interesting thinking about the we rather just the I. Am I emotionally intelligent? Are we emotionally intelligent?
You need to understand, how does this team work?
It's almost kind of keep questioning yourself. What ideas do the team need from me at the moment? Because the last thing they need is more ideas. Sometimes more ideas is actually annoying and it's overwhelming. What we need is decisions, not ideas.
Hi, it's Helen from the Squiggly Careers podcast. And before you listen to today's episode, I wanted to let you know about some news that Sarah and I are very excited about. And that is that our new book, Learn Like a Lobster, is now ready to pre-order. We think that learning is so important to people succeeding in their squiggly career, but we recognise that it is not easy to do. And so we wanted to inspire people to look differently at learning, and we think that lobsters are the role model that we have been missing. We really, really appreciate it when people pre-order our book. It means that our book gets momentum and also you get it first. But we know it's a while before that book arrives, and so anyone who pre-orders, we have got a special surprise. The surprise is the Learn Like a Lobster library, and you will become a member of the library when you pre-order the book. In the library, you will find 3 live learning sessions with Sarah and me, one in October, November and December. There's lots of tools for you to try out, and there's a community to connect with. So please, please, please pre-order Learn Like a Lobster now. Support Squiggly Careers and support your own career too. If you send your pre-order to hello@learnlikealobster.com, we'll be in touch with everything you need to know to join the library. So pre-order the book, send it to hello@learnlikealobster.com, and we will be in touch with everything else. On to today's episode.
Hi, I'm Sarah.
And I'm Helen.
And this is the Squiggly Careers podcast. Each week we borrow some brilliance and turn that curiosity into actions in a way that we hope will help all of us succeed in our squiggly careers.
And in today's episode, we are going to be tackling the topic, it's hard to say, of authenticity, which it turns out also might be harder than you might think to do. And I was intrigued by somebody whose work we followed for ages. I think we're just really big fans of how he thinks. And that is Dr. Tomas Chamorro-Premuzic, who has a new book all about basically not being yourself, this mantra of just bring your whole self to work. And what does he call it? The authenticity cult or something like that. He's basically very, very anti this idea of everyone should just be themselves at work. So we thought today that we would talk about that a little bit, maybe share some of his insights and our own opinions on his advice. And then, as ever, because we're trying to turn our curiosity into actions for you at work, we've got 3 things that you can do with his insights and advice so that you can put them into action to support your squiggly career. That is our plan.
And one quick thing, this is our 500th episode today. Woo! Which, sure. There's not loads to say, is there?
Do you know what? I normally do the milestones and then you normally just sort of flatten them.
That was my version of doing a milestone.
I know you've said it in flat.
It's because no one cares. I don't think you think do I? Actually, do you know what I do care about? I do think doing something consistently for that long every week is something to be really proud of.
I agree.
And so that I think for my
congratulations, Sarah,
personal recognition of myself, I think I care. And I do, if I think about where we started 500 episodes ago, it does, we've
in a little studio.
We've come a long way.
Do you remember that little black studio went down the stairs and we would sit there really rigid with our microphones,
being really formal?
I feel like our standards might have dropped. I think we had quite high standards.
Well, there was a moment where I wonder if you can ever tell, when we would have been recording the podcast and both of us would have had really young children and having no sleep. I wonder whether we were, this is amazing because it's not that, we're getting a kind of break from something else that's harder, or whether at times we just sound broken.
I think, if you listened, you'd be like, oh, they're really annoyed with each other there, or clearly
Yes.
someone's interrupted that one, or
Yeah.
I mean, there's
Something a bit stressful's happening.
So I can't listen back. They're traumatizing.
Imagine if you've listened. Do you reckon anyone has listened to all 500 episodes?
Apparently, I have been on like sessions like with the Pod Plus crew before, and some people have listened to every
single one.
Oh,
that's a lot of Helen and Sarah in your ears.
That is a
but
lot.
Thank you. If that is you, I am very grateful that you choose to spend your time with us. And if you're new and you're like, wow, 500, that's really daunting. Don't worry. Just go back to the ones that you need.
Yeah. Search for what you need. Go on our website, amazingyou.com, put in your topic, and it will tell you like the most relevant podcast. Or Sarah and I often use an app called Overcast, which often has quite a good search function, and we'll often just put for our own podcast. We'll just put in
because it's got good search.
Because it's got good search, and we'll find it.
I was just thinking, you'll be able to tell me. Maybe I bring too much authenticity to the podcast, like my actual personality about celebrating milestones. Maybe now you're going to tell me that's not the right thing to do. What do you think?
Well, why don't I tell you a little bit more about this,
and we'll decide.
Authenticity with a very, I think Tomas has a very critical lens on it. So we don't have to agree with it, right? We're just gonna learn from it. So I've got a few notes. It's my notes from reading and reflecting. And I think what we're really looking here is how to use and not use authenticity as a strategy for career success. So that was like my frame when I was absorbing this. I was like, okay, what can I take from this that can help me to use authenticity and what I'm learning to support my career success? So let's do a couple of points to begin with. What he says that we are really aiming for is something called like effective authenticity, and I'll talk about the difference between effective and ineffective. So let's start with effective. He says effective authenticity is where you project a version of yourself that resonates with others whilst maintaining a semblance of genuineness. And
a semblance.
Yes. Yeah. This is a really key point, because he says it's about achieving a harmony between self-expression, so Helen as I want to show up in the world, and social connection, the Helen that the world wants to see. And his point is, if we go round every day just going, well, I'm just going to show up as who I want to be in the world. That's me being authentic. I'm just going to do all the things that I want to do in the way I want to do them. Then actually what that can cause is friction and disconnection from the people that you are working with, because largely the people that are most successful, so you go back to the filter of how does authenticity support career success, largely the people that are most successful in their careers have two dimensions that are consistent. One is agreeableness, so they get on with people. People want to spend time with them, and kindness, so they are kind of empathetic and understanding. And so this idea that you just show up as you kind of want to be, regardless of what people want to see, like you're just like, take me as I am.
I suppose that's quite selfish, right? Potentially.
Yes.
You could say. It's not very thoughtful. It's not very empathetic to almost be just like, oh, I'm just going to be me. Don't care. Don't care how other people feel, think, like what's useful for them. Just kind of completely unfiltered. Like if you wanted to kind of think of it like that, you could be like, okay, well that might be, it's quite egotistical, I guess, doing that.
Yeah. When you start looking at it like that, you're like, oh, sometimes we say, oh, just, be yourself at work. But actually, if you look at it with a critical lens, I think you do get to, oh, but what if that isn't relevant to these people, or what if that isn't helpful to what we're trying to do? Then actually, like you say, it's kind of getting in the way of the work we're trying to do. And he has this point I thought was quite interesting about. He says that actually trust is more important than authenticity. And he talked about like a pilot, for example. He was like, whether they're being their authentic self as a person flying the plane, they're bringing themselves to work, that is less important than trust. Do you trust them to fly the plane? So actually he was saying that, the trust that we place in people to do the job is actually more important to the relationship than, am I just being fully Helen?
Yes, though I don't think I also care if a pilot is kind or agreeable, but I do care if they can fly the plane.
That is true.
Like back to your, and I'm like, oh, as an example, I find that one trickier because of the job that they do. One of the other kind of, it's not a counterpoint, but it's an interesting one to think about, is I suppose if you go too far the other way and you feel like you're wearing a mask, pretending to be someone you're not at work, because if you're feeling like I have to be really agreeable, it's all about other people, if you kind of go that way, that is then really tiring. That is when people are very unhappy. And I have definitely kind of flirted with that at certain points in my career, being like trying to show up in a way because I thought it was like the right way to show up. And that's hard to do well. And I think also not that helpful. And I wonder if you are naturally, I mean, this bit isn't me, but if you are naturally a people pleaser and you're very selfless, almost your description as well, you could end up being kind of very other orientated.
Yeah.
And then not confident enough in yourself. It's a tightrope. It's a tightrope talk.
That's what I thought. You know, this like projecting a version of yourself that resonates with others. So you're being kind of quite adaptable whilst maintaining a semblance of genuineness. It is like, that is quite a hard. And I wrote down as I was reading, I was like, what are the themes that are coming through? So clearly authenticity, but the underpinning themes are trust, not an easy topic, transparency, not an easy topic. And it talks about emotional intelligence quite a lot, like people who do this well, because you are good at understanding others and how you show up in relation to them. I actually haven't read something for a while where emotional intelligence has been so kind of, you know, it was quite fashionable for a while, wasn't it? But it really comes back to it in this topic.
I read something on that last week on, are you part of an emotionally intelligent team? So, you know, to your point, I'd not read anything on it for a while, and then it just popped up. I'll have to find the lady's name who's the researcher. It's a well-researched piece of work. I think it's an academic lady who's done it, and it was on Harvard Business Review because I've shared it with a few people. So we'll put the link to that in the show notes. But I was like, oh, interesting thinking about the we rather than just the I. Am I emotionally intelligent? Are we emotionally intelligent? I was like, oh, that's interesting. So what actions could we take on this? Because this feels really hard, right?
Yeah, I know. So I did get to sort of three areas that I think actually you could take sort of the insights, which are quite complicated. I think there's quite a few different things that are feeding into this, into something that's useful. So the first action that I think is important if you're going to start thinking about what does it mean for me to be authentic in a way that supports my Squiggly Career success, I think you have to know what makes you you, but I think you have to look at that from two perspectives, you at your best and you at your worst. And I think the way to do this, I and Sarah, we often talk about, you know, values are what makes you you. So I think you can start with your values and understanding of what your values are. And for anybody that sprinted with us, we recommended a tool called values.institute as a very good starting place to understand your values if you've not used that tool. So you start with what your values are. And then what you want to think about is for each of those values, what do they look like when I'm at my best? And what do they look like when I'm at my worst? And if you are super self-aware, you might be able to do that. You could go and get some feedback if you're feeling brave. Or what I did is I went to AI and I said, these are my values. This is what I do. What is likely to be the impact of them showing up at their best and at their worst? Would you
didn't need chat. You could just ask me. I reckon I could have done that for you.
I know, but you were busy and I wasn't feeling like a brutal day of feedback. So
because Sarah brings too much of herself to work.
Let's see what you think about these. So let's see if you agree. So freedom is one of my values. I'll just pick out a couple of them. I wrote down my definition. I actually just voice noted it to ChatGPT to make it quicker.
Nice. I don't use voice noting as much.
I found it so helpful.
Maybe I'm going to experiment with that because I love their voice note, but I just don't. I forget, I think, to use GPT in that way.
It's so helpful. I was like, my value is freedom. It means being unconstrained about my choices, and it's got it all
just
here.
Easier than typing. Nice.
Yeah. How might it work for you? Gives you the courage to build and scale your own business rather than being trapped by corporate norms, apparently.
Sure.
How it might work against you. It can risk of spreading yourself and the company too thin by chasing too many opportunities at once. I want to do too much. Energy, I'm just going to say all of them. Energy works for you because it inspires your team, clients and audience. Works against you. Pace and positivity might overwhelm or unintentionally silence quieter team members. Interesting. Growth works for you, keeps your company evolving. Working against you may create impatience when progress feels slow. Achievement works for you, drives results. You don't just think you make things happen. Works against you. You'll love this one. Risk of prioritizing visible wins over deeper, longer-term investments that might not quickly pay off.
Oh, I don't know. I don't think. I actually think a few of those, you know about yourself already, and so there were a few there where I was like, well, I think I actually think you are very good at including people in conversation. So I don't see you silence other people with your energy. I understand how that could be a risk with you. Yeah. Because you do bring so much energy, and it's literally your watchword. I feel like if I cut you in half, that's the word that would be in the middle. But maybe because you're self-aware, or maybe because you've thought about it. Also because we all have agility, right? Just because you bring energy doesn't mean that you can't include people in conversations.
Well, you have to have, I think, the awareness to have agility. And we've talked about this at length. So, I know what my values are, and I've thought about them before, but I think other people might not be in the same place. So the first action, I think, is, in order for you to have the agility, which is what Tomas is recommending, like, don't just go be yourself all the time, Helen. So don't ignore that sometimes when I show up with my values, it can have a negative impact. I think that first bit is be aware of what makes you you, when that works for you, and when that could work against you. And it's the working against you bit that he's saying, don't be 100% authentic, or all those things that are going to work against you are going to show up for you at work and get in your way.
That's good team activity. I can see that working as a team feels quite, you definitely have to have some trust, right? Because you're talking about yourself at your worst. But I can also imagine that making people smile. And, like often you at your worst, you people have a little bit of an inclination of that anyway. And then actually being able to say it and kind of people being like, oh yeah, Helen, freedom, loves loads of stuff. You're like, well, of course she does. That's sort of what makes her brilliant. But actually people maybe hearing it from everyone could be quite a nice, that's quite a nice like team trust activity.
Yeah, I think, and the reason I quite like that using the chat GPT stuff is you've got 75% of the way there without anyone having to say the hard thing. You're like, I've done some of the hard work for you. I'm just asking you what you agree, what you disagree with. You don't have to say it out loud.
And I do wonder whether it's nice to be able to still have the choice in terms of what you share for you at your worst versus you imagine other people telling you, even like you and I doing that.
I edited some of those. There were some that were a bit vulnerable, so I just didn't say them.
Okay. But that's okay, right? That is also part of doing what you feel comfortable about with. Yeah. And I remember in Why Should Anyone Be Led By You, one of the things that Rob Joffrey and Gareth Jones talked about, which actually is a similar theme, when you start to connect dots, they talk about the idea of being selectively vulnerable. So actually, again, as a leader, they say you shouldn't just, when there was like a real trend to be like, leaders need to be really vulnerable and stuff. They were like, sure, you need to be human, but don't share everything all of the time, because actually that's not what teams need. That's not what, they don't need to know from you that this is really stressful or that all this stuff is kind of going on. Like, you do need to think about what's useful for you to share, but also what's useful for other people. So actually, though initially that idea of authenticity can sound quite brutal, can't it? Being like, well, it's about being agreeable and kind and don't worry. Actually, when you start to get to it, you're like, it sounds quite smart and sensible.
Yeah. Well, that bit about the team, I think, is the next part of where I get to on the action. So I almost see it as like a bit of a funnel. So the top part one of the funnel is like, what are you bringing? Where does that work for you and work against you? And let's hold the what might work against you stuff. Okay. Before you just adapt for adapting's sake, I think the second bit is he talks about like the rules of the game. Like you need to understand, like, how does this team work? What are the dynamics of the team? Who does well in the team? What does success look like in the team? You need a bit of data so that you can take those things that might work for or against you, and you're looking at them in the context of the team or the company that you're working in. So that's where you're going to do the like potential adapting. Otherwise you're changing in a very kind of undefined or unmanaged way.
Yeah, so this is about being situational.
Yes.
So I suppose knowing how your values work for and against you, generally useful, but sort of even more useful if you then make that application to, well, what kind of team am I working in? What kind of culture am I in? What kind of organisation am I in? And actually in some places, like you and I both have achievement as a value. If I think about how that achievement shows up in different companies, it's actually always been quite different. Yeah. Because of what that organisation is like. Are they a very achievement-based organisation? And what would achievement mean to that company? Are they very results-focused? Are they very people-focused? Are they very short-term? All of those kind of things. It's connecting the dots, isn't it, between like you and who you work with and who you work for.
Yeah, and I think, and knowing that is quite dynamic. So I was thinking like it's team and time. So how does this team work? But also even the same team, can need different things at different times.
Nice, yeah.
And therefore, my energy might be really appropriate in some times of the year, start of the year, or we've got a big moment, like you're like, bring that is usefully authentic, effectively authentic, as he would say. Use that at that moment in time. But other times, that level of authenticity is going to be really annoying and it's not actually going to help the team. It's just, I'm going to be really energetic when actually people want to be reflective or calm, for example.
Yeah. Okay.
So the third thing, so we've now...
I'm more and more on board. The more we talk about it, the more on board I'm becoming.
So we're aware of what makes us us and how that works for and against us. We've got this sort of situational context of what does the team need from me, so we can be adapting. And that is the third item, which I've got two names. So one, I've got like focus on your flex. So you work out in this team at this time, what do you need to flex so that you can still be yourself. The other thing I've written about is be intentional about the coffee. Can I explain that point?
Talk to me. Love a coffee.
I love a bit of coffee. So he has this really nice comparison where he talks about authenticity and coffee. And he says that like lots of people don't like 100% full strength coffee. Like, people like a latte with some milk and some foam and some sugar. Yeah. And so very, very rarely.
We saw that. We were away as a team last week and the range of coffee orders, like some people definitely don't really like coffee. Exactly. And then there's you having like a pure black coffee.
Yeah, that's true. Strong. I'm like, triple espresso, please.
I think you did have something like that one day. I was like, here you go, Helen.
There you go. Well, apparently most people don't like that because if we're thinking about authenticity, most people don't want the pure, unfiltered version of each other. They want the... I've had a bit of extra milk, please.
Bit of milk,
bit of sugar, kind of soften you up. And my point here with focus on your flex is you still want a bit of coffee, right? But you need to work out like how much coffee. Are we triple espresso today? Because your company really does need the full-on version of you. Or actually, are we, I'm going to go out with my depth with my coffees here, but are we I don't know.
Cortado?
Exactly.
You and I both drink a lot of coffee. We're not out of our depth. Are you a pour over? Are you a V60?
Oh,
I can keep going.
You can go far further than me.
Yeah.
I am like an espresso pod in a room and you're like, I'm going to walk for a mile
to find the coffee shop. Yeah. Though I still have milk in I do have milk in my coffee. But yeah, I will walk to find the coffee shop.
So, but yeah, I guess the point is you need to work out like what coffee you're bringing, or if that doesn't work for you, you need to focus on your flex. But I think the point is be intentional. Like you might think about over the next month, over the next quarter, who does my team need me to be? And how can I still bring me at my best? It's his whole point is, this isn't just this selfish, I'm just going to be myself at work every single day regardless. I need to be the person my team needs to be whilst also still feeling true to me. And that is tricky. But I think this sort of awareness, team context, intentional flex is how you might get to that outcome.
I also wonder if you need to keep coming back to it because... you said the word dynamic, we said situational, we talked about context. It's not a sort of solve it once. This is not a one and done, is it? This is you kind of need to know yourself at the core. So I think you do need to do your values. And also we've got a free values toolkit on our website. Use that, use the Values Institute. There's loads of good stuff out there now that you just get for free that's pretty good quality. And then I think it's kind of the wrapper. It's like what goes around that. And as you said, it's unlikely to stay the same. It's almost kind of keep questioning yourself. Like I would think, okay, so one of my values is ideas. What ideas do the team need from me at the moment? Do they need loads of ideas? Do they actually need me to back away because the last thing they need is more ideas? Sometimes more ideas is actually annoying and it's overwhelming. What we need is decisions, not ideas. And I suppose if I was going to think about this more consistently, I wonder if I'd want to come up with almost like a set of questions to ask myself, because obviously I love a coach yourself question. Regular listeners will know that. And so I think I find questions a useful way it gives you a frame for me to get started. So it might be things like, what do my values mean at my best at the moment? What would my values mean kind of at my worst this week? Or, just to start to get some really like useful insights that I can then turn into kind of actions. I need to dial this up a bit. I need to dial this down. Or I need to think about doing some things differently. Because often we just don't have that awareness, do we? We're not
really thinking. We're just operating. But I think in this like social context of being authentic and bringing yourself to work is brilliant. And I think what he's doing is putting a mirror up to that and going, but maybe we should think a bit more about it.
Yeah, it's being much more intentional, isn't it? Very useful. So
thank you.
If people want to find more, please make sure you go to the show notes where there's loads of links. Lots of you will already be signed up to Squiggly Careers in Action. That's our newsletter that comes out every Tuesday. And pretty much everything in that newsletter is always free. So our ambition is to make careers better for everyone. So we try to make sure that we're doing as much useful ideas, actions, tools that anyone can access wherever you are in the world and however you like to learn. So if you don't sign up to that and you've enjoyed the podcast, that just might be helpful for you and your development.
And nearly 40,000 people do, Sarah. So lots of people are getting all that insight. So hopefully we can have a few more into the mix.
But that's everything for this week. Thank you so much for listening and back with you again soon. Bye for now.
Bye everyone.